All righty, everyone. I will call the meeting back to order. The next item on our agenda is a joint meeting with the Finance Committee and the Capital Outlay Committee. We have Aaron Polanski, Superintendent of the Old Colony Regional Vocational High School, here with us today to provide some updates relative to the MSBA process. Welcome, Mr. Polanski.
Thank you.
Prior to you speaking, Beth, would you like to call your committees to order?
Sure. I would like to call to order the Finance Committee tonight, December 20th, 2022 at, 6:38 p.m. I'd also like to call to order tonight the Capital Outlay Committee, December 20th, 2022 at 6:39 p.m.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Mr. Polanski, we'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to come before you this evening and for making it so convenient to meet with all three groups. I really appreciate that. I know that everyone's time is at a premium, especially around the holidays. So to the chair and to the entire group, thank you for making that opportunity available. We thought that it would be really important to just keep people informed as our process with regard to our statement of interest, which was filed last year, moves forward. In March of 2022, we were notified that we would be invited into what they call the eligibility phase of the Massachusetts State Building Authority program. And we were notified that the eligibility period would begin in October of this year. So October 3rd of this year, we began that process. And prior to the process beginning, we created a document called A Vision for the Future. I emailed that to the group. I did leave my cards with some folks because some of the emails bounced back. I just want to make sure I have the appropriate email addresses. I'll do that through both chairs at some point and make sure I can get you a digital copy of this as well, because I think it will be nice for you to be able to share if you would like to do so. But basically, we put a vision for the future together so that folks have an understanding of why we submitted a statement of interest. And it really comes down to an investment that we believe our 5-member towns have made over the course of our existence. Our original building is where we are located currently. It was built in 1975. Up until recently, a few years ago, when you walked into our lobby, you'd have felt like you entered the Brady Bunch. You might dodge a football and hear someone yell, "Ow, my nose," if you're familiar with that episode of the Brady Bunch where Marcia gets hit with the football. But all joking aside, we chose to submit a grant a few years ago for the overhaul of that lobby alone, because we feel like a first impression is really important. What we didn't do was go much beyond that because we had a vision for something maybe a little bit different, i.e. the MSBA project. We were given a grant. Our students totally redesigned our front lobby. You can see the work that they've done in this vision for the future. We feel like it was a really smart use of funds. It gives a great first impression when you walk into the school and serves as somewhat of a Band-Aid so that you don't feel like you're walking into the 1970s. The truth is there are many systems within the school that require repair at this point in time, systems that you can't see, drains in our culinary department, water tanks that we use with our sole source of water, which is a well. We don't have water redundancy, and we don't have fire protection. To do that would require a complete overhaul of the existing systems. And so what we've done is we've submitted this statement of interest. We've begun our eligibility process. To date, we've submitted an initial compliance certification that was due on November 2nd. And basically what that is a document that states we will follow all of the rules in terms of what the MSBA lays out for us. The second piece is we've established a school building committee with representation from each of our member towns. Selectman Townsend and Chair Sulger sit on that committee, along with Maureen Townsend, who is the representative of the Old Colony School Committee, who also sits on that committee. That committee structure was due to the MSBA by December 2nd of 2022. We have, by January 2nd, we will have submitted a Chapter 74 viability document, and that basically states that we're looking to expand our Chapter 74 programs in the areas of plumbing, HVAC, and a potential 2 other programs. We're very male heavy right now. We're over 60%, we're just about 60% male and 40% female at Old Colony. And we know that to add HVAC and plumbing, while those are big in terms of labor market demand, and will also allow us to assist our towns in a full construction capacity, should also be offset by some female-oriented programming, and we've thought about the potential of dental assisting and biotechnology. Those were two, to name a few. The other document that we'll submit is an educational profile questionnaire. The educational profile questionnaire will basically speak to the direction we're looking to head as an educational institution, which wouldn't be much different from where we are now, though it will allow for some expansion in terms of capacity. If we add Chapter 74 programs, that would mean an increase of approximately 48 students per year because it's 12 per program. And if you do that over the course of 4 years, our total enrollment might increase by about 192.
Mr. Polanski, I'm sorry, could you just speak a little closer to the microphone? The air conditioning system gets a little loud
I've heard
here
that come
sometimes.
on, and I will do my best.
Thank you.
And so by adding the 4 vocational programs, it would have an impact on our total enrollment, and we would look to move to an increase over a 4-year period at 48 students per year to an increased enrollment by about 192, which would keep us under the 800 student mark. Currently, we receive about 300 applications a year from our 5-member towns in total for what we currently accommodate, which is 140 students per year. So to be able to increase that to 188 students per year is really a vision we have for the future. The last piece that we will submit by January 2nd is an enrollment projection. And again, the enrollment projection would show that once a building were to become available, we would have the ability to accommodate 48 more students per year, if that makes sense. So on the Old Colony School Committee agenda for tomorrow evening is a discussion relative to the cost of a feasibility study. And I come before you this evening to ask that a placeholder be put on the town meeting warrant for the purpose of addressing the feasibility study. In order to move forward, we have to ask our member towns for their support and for a share of the feasibility study at the annual town meetings this spring of 2023. We will talk about a stabilization fund that we've put aside since 2014 to help to offset this cost so that the cost will not be exclusively the responsibility of our 5-member towns, but so that we can also contribute through use of that stabilization fund. And that will be a primary topic, again, for tomorrow evening's meeting at our school committee. At the conclusion of that meeting, my intent is to reach out to this group and to provide, through the chair, additional information that can be shared with the Carver residents so that they have a better idea of where we will stand in terms of what it is we'd be asking for.
Mr. Polanski, would you mind, just for the folks at home, telling us who the 5-member towns are?
Sure. The 5-member towns include the town of Acushnet, Carver, Lakeville, Mattapoisett, and Rochester.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So we would love to put, or just to request, a placeholder on the warrant, and we will have the specifics of the information that we will deliver to ensure that all of the appropriate information for the vote is communicated to the town administrator. I want to extend an opportunity. I know many of you have had the opportunity to visit Old Colony, but if you have not, I would love to offer you the opportunity to come in, to have a tour of the facility, to see what it is we do, who we are. The warmth and the investment that you're making, I think, is a really important piece. It should be tangible. It should be something that people experience and they don't just hear about. And I extend that not only to this group, but if there are members of the town who would be interested in something of the like, I want to make that available too through stakeholder visits. And so we'll be organizing those visits throughout the course of the spring so that people really have an opportunity to see the investment. The other piece that we've put into place is the return of adult education. And I think that given the nature of where the economy is headed, we're very proud to share that we've recently added an adult education program in the area of welding. We are offering 10 free slots that were filled almost within 2 weeks, sooner than 2 weeks of us posting the information. People will be able to go through a 225-hour welding program and earn their credentials within the field. They'll be immediately employable. And we have welding companies ready to hire people at $65 an hour right out of this program. We'll be doing like programs in the areas of machine and tool technology. We have a culinary program that we'll be offering. And so I think to know that Old Colony is more than just a school for students in grades 9 through 12. When you look at your gazebo in Carver, we were responsible for that. I believe there's a table at the fire station that our students built. And so when we add something like plumbing and HVAC, our opportunities to give back are just enhanced by that much more. And we really pride ourselves on being a school that not only serves our 9 through 12 students, but serves our member communities as well. So I think at this point what I'd like to do is open the floor up for questions if people may have them. And if I don't have the answers, I will do my best to find them for you. And the answers I do have, I'll be happy to share.
Are there questions from members of the select board? Anyone? No?
Sure.
Mr.
Well,
Cotter?
I know you're kind of in the implementation stage, everything's early with regards to numbers and things like that, but is this a reno and an addition scenario?
So that's a great question, John. I think what we'll probably end up doing is we'll go through the feasibility study, and at the conclusion of that study, what they'll do is they'll say to us, here's the cost of a renovation. Here's the cost of a new building. Here's the cost of a combination of the two. And here are a few options for each of those possibilities. Please take that to the people and make a decision that you feel is going to best serve the investment. So I think at this point in time, it's probably premature for me to be able to answer that because I'd have to see what the costs associated would be. But the good news is that through a feasibility study, we'd have better answers to determine what the best course of action would be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
I was wondering, Aaron, would you like us to go around and tell you who's on capital outlay and who's on finance?
I think it's so nice to meet people. I think, part of that would be wonderful. Part of what we
Just so
do
you
here
know.
is we build relationships as we move our way through the work.
Sure. So John Cotter is the select board and on capital outlay. Jim Hoffman is also select board and on capital outlay. I'm Beth Salger, I'm on finance committee and capital outlay. Bill Cullum, he's on finance committee. Tony Macrina, finance committee. Marie Zwegman, vice chairman on capital outlay. Pat Mahar is on finance committee. And Walter Cole, also finance committee.
Great. Thank you for the introductions. I really appreciate that.
The other thing, I'm not sure if we mentioned how much the feasibility study cost.
Oh, that's a great question. We think that the feasibility study will be between $1 million and $1.2 million. Again, tomorrow night, the committee will establish what number they're comfortable with selecting and what portion of our stabilization we will contribute to make sure there's an offset for the member towns.
The other thing I just wanted to make sure, going with that, is the town of Carver, it's not just divided by 5 after they put their portion from the stability fund. It's going to go on the amount of enrollment we have in there.
It's proportional,
Just so you know.
correct?
Yeah.
Correct. So what happens is any capital expense is determined using a formula, and much of that formula is enrollment based. It's a combination of your enrollment and your census of all students in the district, but the primary number comes from your enrollment. A small percentage of that comes from the census tied to the number of students total attending in the town.
Do you know what that number is, percentage-wise?
I can tell you, I brought the numbers just in case somebody asks, so give me 1 minute. I know that I've got it here in this packet. So the enrollment for Carver, just to give you a bit of a look back, so you can understand not just this year, but consistency over the last, let's say, 10. 2022, October 1, 89. 2021, 83. 2020, 95. 2019, 92. 2018, 91. 2017, 92. 2016, 91. 2015, 92, 2014, 95, 2013-93. It's been pretty consistent. It's hovered above or below 90 by a few.
Mr. Mahar?
Hey, Aaron.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm Pat Maher,
Yes.
and I have been around the block a few times.
Sure.
I was business manager and assistant superintendent here in Carver. Spent 7 years as a business manager at a vocational school. I've done school building under both the old rules and the new rules.
Super.
And I also, when your business manager, Sarah, was going for her business manager's license through MASBO, I was her mentor.
That is wonderful.
So, what are the, what would your anticipated percentage be of reimbursement once construction starts?
Sure. Let me read to you, because I think it's really important that I share the specifics of what was written, and you'll understand this
Yep.
probably given your experience. It's, I want to read the email as it was written, because I think that, again, verbiage is everything. So for folks who may not be familiar with the terrain as it currently sits in building, the building world for education, there's a lot of talk about whether or not the square footage that's currently being reimbursed is the appropriate reimbursement from the state. And so there's some potential fluctuation in the number. And so I tried to bring the paperwork in anticipation of the questions that may be asked, and this was one of the questions that I wanted to make sure I could address appropriately. I asked the question to the MSBA, at what point will we learn about a reimbursement rate? The response was, the current reimbursement rate for Old Colony is 54.16% for all eligible costs. Not everything is reimbursable. The demolition, for instance, of an old building is not reimbursable should there be a new project. There are other costs that are also not reimbursable. So we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. That's very, very
Yeah,
important.
it's like administrative space and so
Correct,
forth.
is
It's
not reimbursable.
Mm.
This will be recalculated in 2023, and I will reach out in early to mid-January if this number has changed or remained the same. This is from the MSBA. The rate will be recalculated further into the project after feasibility study and during schematic design. At that point, the project scope and budget of this project will be finalized, and incentive points will be added to the reimbursement rate. So as it currently stands, for reimbursable costs, it's 54.16%. But is it Mahar? Is that how I say your last name? As Mr. Mahar can attest to, reimbursable is a very iffy category.
Can be.
And it can be significantly less, and so we don't want to make any promises in terms of what that number may be. We want to be able to speak to specifics as we move throughout. But we were given a number, an initial number for reimbursable costs of 54.16%.
And two, the reimbursement mechanism itself, maybe you could speak to that a little bit. And it's been a while since I've done any of this. Years ago, when we were under the old rules, you had the town would take out like a 20-year bond and then get reimbursed by the DOE to repay that bond. The newer rules, it's more like pay as you go. So maybe you could enlighten us a little further about that.
To the extent I'm able, I will. The pay-as-you-go is an accurate framework. I think what I was told is that in the early stages, to get started, we're going to want to bring to take out some type of financial pad so that we can get started, because it is pay-as-you-go. Once we get going, there'll be reimbursements that come as a result of whatever we're submitting throughout the course of the process. I was also told that much of the feasibility study is reimbursable, where the non-reimbursable areas,
That I had,
yeah,
because
tend to fall more within the actual building project itself.
like under the old rules, if you had a building project that took 3 years, you were still paying it off for the next 17. Under these rules, even though payments are going to be higher, it is basically, pay as you go. You spend $1 million and you'll get, well, you won't get your $1 million back, but you'll get your prorated percentage back. So it greatly reduces the amount of time that a debt is on the books.
Sure. And that's accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'll tell Sarah I saw you.
Okay, good.
She was home and unable to join us. She sends her regrets.
I haven't seen her for a while. She knows my daughter really well, too.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Sarah's
Spent some
wonderful.
time over in Old Rochester region.
Yes.
I was their treasurer.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
No, but there was one other thing I just wanted to make sure we all talked about was for this feasibility study to actually go through, all 5 towns are gonna have to vote yes at their town meeting. Just so you guys are all aware. And Carver is the first of the 5 towns to have a town meeting. So if Carver votes no, then this is probably a no for this year, unless we have another town meeting. But I just wanted to make sure we're all aware of that. Or if any of the other towns vote no, this may also not happen.
Sure.
Mr. Polanski, you mentioned that citizens could contact you and take a tour of Old Colony if they wanted to. How would they best contact you?
I think my email is probably the best way to reach me. It's APOLANSKY as in yes @oldcolony.info.
Okay.
And I'm more than happy to have folks in just to see the building and understand again what the investment is about. I think it truly is an investment. As I left another member town yesterday evening, a woman from the crowd came out and she said, I just want you to know how much we love Old Colony and what it did for me through adult education, and that I'm able to do the things I do today because of what I received in terms of an education as an adult at Old Colony. And she said, I want you to know you have our full support, my full support. And I just smiled and I thought to myself, as educators, this is why we do what we do. We want to create opportunities for people and we want to build community. And I think it's really important that we avail ourselves to any questions. And if people have questions, I want to be available to answer those.
Mr. Fennessy, can we get that information up on the website? And so,
We will, yeah.
in case anyone wants that. All right. Is there any other questions from anyone?
Sure.
Mr. Carter?
Sorry, just a quick question with regards to the $1 to $1.2 million fund that's needed for this study. And you talked a little bit about how it gets split and allocated.
Yeah.
Do you know what Carver's percentage is of the 1.2 million?
We'll have more information relative to that probably as soon as next week.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, we'll talk about whether it's $1 million, 1.1, 1.2. Then we'll make decisions about how to proceed with stabilization as an offset. And then once we know what the offset is from stabilization, Sarah, who Mr. Mahar referred to, will punch some numbers, and she'll have a better idea as to what each percentage will be for our member towns, so that they have a concrete number going into town meeting that they can actually communicate, so that there's no guesswork involved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Fennessy?
Yeah, 2 things. So first, hello again.
Hello again.
First, you mentioned a placeholder, so that we have to have that by Tuesday
Yeah.
at 3:00.
Sure.
Okay, so just get it to me and we'll take care of that.
That would be great. Do you need the specific language, or do you just need
No,
something?
just general what you're looking for,
Okay, I'll,
and then you can fix it.
all
as
right,
we go
that's
along.
great. If we can put placeholder for MSBA vote feasibility study, I think that would be sufficient
Okay.
for now, just as the hold, and then I'll get you the specific language ASAP.
Okay,
I should be able to have that for you within a couple weeks.
okay. And my second question, one time we had talked about towns utilizing ARPA funds
Yeah,
to take care of this feasibility study,
sure.
and that fell apart.
We had talked about at one point, related to this, but not identical to the feasibility study. Old Colony does not have fire protection or water redundancy, and what that means is we operate from a single well. If something were to happen to that well, I have concerns. I talked to Mr. Fennessy about the idea of running water from Middleborough. We have permission from the Middleborough superintendent to connect at the Annie Maxim House on North Avenue and pull water all the way to Old Colony should we ever want to do that. They give us their blessing. That infrastructure cost would cost us about $2.1 million. I had reached out to all of our town administrators because ARPA covers this water type project to ask if they had already allocated all of their funds, because if they hadn't, I thought it might be a nice regional approach to use of ARPA funds. As Chair Sulger mentioned, we operate in a form where we require 5 yeses. If one person has already allocated their ARPA funds, then that vision that I had goes by the wayside. Unfortunately, we did have a couple of communities that had already allocated all of their ARPA funds, so we couldn't go that route. Now, what I don't know is if ARPA funds could be used for the feasibility study, because that's up to the town, and whether or not the oversight of ARPA, whomever that may be for you, would allow you to utilize ARPA funds for this feasibility. And if that, and you might be able to ask the powers that be, is this a reasonable use of ARPA funds? And if so, could you use them? I don't want to say yes or no because I don't know the answer. I know that we do have other towns that are looking into that as well. So if you do find out that you can, and you want to let us know, I would also share that information with those other towns, because I know that 3 of our towns did have an interest in the water project. 3 of our towns also had an interest in the use of ARPA funds for the offset, and would probably be interested in the offset for something like the feasibility study as well.
But just to piggyback on that, if it was determined that a town could use ARPA funds for the feasibility study, there's no reason that all 5 towns would have to use ARPA funds,
You're
right?
correct.
One town could appropriate the money at a town meeting, another town could choose to use money from ARPA, correct?
Sure, if it is an acceptable use of ARPA, I do not think it would depend on all 5 towns. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Is there anything else from anyone? Mr. Fennessy?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
I just have one more question. So in your Old Colony Capital Stabilization Fund, do you know about how much is in it, about how much you might be contributing?
I'm guessing that the contribution will be somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000.
Okay.
So our goal would be to cover at least half. That's our goal. And so in the vicinity of half is our goal, because we made that commitment when we opened this stabilization fund with this in mind. It's why we had it in place, because we think it's the right thing to do. Is to not say to the towns, here's a whole ticket, but instead to say, we're asking for half the ticket. We've put aside in a responsible manner the other half of the ticket to the extent possible.
That's great.
So that's our goal. I'll know, like I said, I'm going to know a lot more tomorrow night. I'm excited to be able to provide those answers with more detail. But I think, again, when Sarah came in, I don't know if this was part of your work with her, but this is one of the first things she did, was she established that stabilization fund back in, I believe, 2014 for this purpose.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Fennessy, are we good with a placeholder now for town meeting?
Yeah, you have the language right, yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
Mr. Polanski, anything else?
No, just, I want to say thank you again. I think that the partnership with Carver has been a beautiful thing in my 7 years. I walked in and I saw Ron. I got a big smile on my face. We have some history where we've shared some time with similar mentors, and every time I walk into town hall, I get a very warm welcome. Carver's been a wonderful partner for many, many years, and I thank you for that. And I thank you again for bringing the committees together. My wife does too, because sometimes it's a lot of nights, but it's nice to sit before the entire group and have the opportunity to share the information. And again, my door is open if ever you want to come in and just either see Old Colony or learn a little bit more about the investment that you've made. That is my job, and I enjoy every minute of it. So thank you.
All right, and again, if any members of the public want to tour Old Colony, they can just send you an email, and I will have that information up on the website, and they can arrange that.
That's wonderful. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
No, thank you. Ms. Selger, would you like to adjourn your committees?
Yes, could I have a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee? Second. Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, could I have a motion to close the capital outlay committee?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Thank you, guys.
Is there a motion from the select board to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the
Happy holidays,
holidays.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.